You throw away useful things almost every week without realizing that some of them could make your garden healthier, save you money, and help your plants grow stronger. I used to do exactly the same until an older neighbor stopped me one day and said that the best gardeners are often the ones who waste the least. That simple sentence stayed with me for years because I slowly discovered that many ordinary items we think are useless still have a second life in the garden. If you keep watching with me, I will show you 17 simple things I never throw away anymore and why each one can quietly improve the soil, protect plants, or make gardening easier without spending extra money. None of these ideas are difficult, and most of them were shown to me many years ago by people who had beautiful gardens long before expensive products filled the store shelves. The first thing I always save is cardboard. Most people see trash, but I see one of the easiest ways to block weeds and keep moisture in the soil. I simply remove the tape, lay the cardboard around my beds, wet it well, and cover it with mulch. After some time, it begins to break down and feeds the soil little by little. Very few people still use this old method, yet every season it saves me hours of pulling weeds. The second thing I never throw away is eggshells. I rinse them, let them dry completely, crush them into small pieces, and add them to my compost or mix them into the soil over time. They break down slowly, so I never expect instant results, but they become part of a healthy garden cycle instead of filling the trash bin. Many people make the mistake of throwing these simple materials away because they are looking for quick solutions. I learned that the garden often rewards patience more than expensive products, and the next few items on my list surprised me even more when I first started using them. The third thing I never throw away is used coffee grounds, but this is where most people make a mistake. They dump thick layers around every plant and expect miracles. I never do that. I let the coffee grounds dry first, then I mix small amounts into my compost or blend them with other natural materials before adding them to the garden. Over the years, I have noticed that this simple habit helps create richer compost instead of sending another useful material to the trash. The fourth thing is banana peels. I do not believe in magic tricks, but I do believe in wasting less. I chop the peels into small pieces and place them inside the compost where they break down much faster than whole peels. It costs nothing, and every little bit becomes part of the soil again. The fifth thing surprised me when an old gardener showed it to me many years ago. He never threw away wood ash from clean, untreated firewood. He sprinkled only a light amount around certain garden areas because too much can cause problems. Most people either never use it or use far too much. A little goes a long way, and that is something experience teaches better than any book. The sixth thing is fallen leaves. Every autumn I watch people fill dozens of bags and leave them on the curb. I see free mulch instead. Dry leaves protect the soil from strong sun, help keep moisture in place, and slowly return organic matter back into the ground. The seventh thing is grass clippings, but only from lawns that have not been treated with herbicides or other chemicals. I spread thin layers around vegetables after the clippings have dried slightly. They help reduce weeds and slow down water loss during hot weather. Many gardeners still overlook this simple habit because they think expensive mulch always works better. In my experience, the old methods often work just as well when they are used correctly. But there are still many everyday items that people throw away without a second thought, and a few of the next ones have saved me more money than almost anything else I have used in my garden over the years. The eighth thing I always keep is old plastic bottles because they become some of the most useful tools in my garden. I cut the bottoms off some of them to protect young seedlings from cold nights and hungry insects, and I use others as slow-watering containers by making a few small holes near the bottom and placing them beside larger plants. Water reaches the roots slowly instead of running across the surface, and during the hottest weeks of summer this simple trick makes a noticeable difference. Very few people still bother doing this because buying ready-made watering systems seems easier, but this old method has worked for me for years. The ninth thing I never throw away is paper rolls from toilet paper and paper towels. They are simple, but they help me organize young seedlings and protect tender stems during the first weeks of growth. After some time, the cardboard begins to break down naturally. The 10th thing is old newspapers with plain black print. I place several sheets under mulch in walking paths or between rows to reduce weeds. I avoid glossy pages because they are made differently, and I always cover the paper with mulch so the wind cannot carry it away. The 11th thing is broken tree branches. Instead of burning or throwing them away, I cut them into smaller pieces and place them at the bottom of certain raised beds or compost piles where they slowly break down over time. Many older gardeners showed me this years ago, and I still use the same idea today. The 12th thing is vegetable scraps from the kitchen. Onion skins, carrot peels, lettuce leaves, and many other plant leftovers become valuable compost instead of garbage. I simply avoid adding meat, dairy, or oily food because those belong somewhere else. People often think composting is complicated, but in reality, it becomes part of your daily routine after only a few weeks. Every bucket of compost I make means one less bag I need to buy at the garden center, and that feeling of saving money while creating healthier soil never gets old. We have only covered 12 items so far, and the last 5 may be the ones that surprise you the most because they are probably already sitting somewhere around your house waiting to become useful instead of ending up in the trash. The 13th thing I never throw away is clean rainwater whenever I have the chance to collect it. I know not everyone has room for large barrels, but even a few buckets after a good rain can be useful for watering containers or young plants during a dry week. I learned this habit from an older gardener who always smiled when people complained about high water bills. He would simply point to his rain barrel and say, nature had already done part of the work for him. The 14th thing is old cotton clothing that can no longer be worn. Instead of sending every worn shirt or towel to the trash, I cut them into strips and use them for tying tomato plants, peppers, beans, and young fruit trees. Soft fabric is gentle on stems and can often be reused many times before it finally wears out. The 15th thing is small wooden sticks from broken handles, old garden markers, or trimmed branches. Many people throw them away without thinking, but I keep a bucket full of them in my shed. They become plant labels, simple supports for seedlings, or markers that remind me where I planted slow, germinating seeds. It sounds like a small thing, but when planting season becomes busy, having these little helpers ready saves both time and frustration. The 16th thing is the water left after washing fresh vegetables, as long as no soap or cleaning products have been used. If I rinse carrots, lettuce, or potatoes in a bowl of clean water, I often carry that water straight outside and pour it onto ornamental plants or around shrubs instead of letting it go down the drain. It may seem like a tiny habit, but over an entire season, those small savings add up. The 17th and final thing is patience itself. I know that is not something you can hold in your hand, but it is probably the most valuable thing I have learned never to throw away. Most people give up too early, dig up seeds before they sprout, replace plants before they recover, or buy another expensive product before giving a simple method enough time to work. An old gardener once told me that a healthy garden is built one small habit at a time, not one expensive purchase at a time. Those words have stayed with me for years, and before we finish, I want to share why these simple habits have changed far more than just the way my garden looks. As the years passed, I noticed something that I never expected. My garden became easier to care for not because I worked harder, but because I stopped wasting useful things and started paying more attention to simple habits. Every season, I saved a little money here and a little time there, and by the end of the year, the difference was much bigger than I had imagined. Most people think improving a garden requires buying another bag of fertilizer, another tool, or another product that promises perfect results. I used to believe that, too. Then I realized that many of the best improvements were already sitting around my house waiting to be used one more time. One mistake I still see very often is trying too many new ideas all at once. When people hear several useful tips, they sometimes rush outside and change everything in a single afternoon. I have learned that gardens do not need sudden changes. They respond much better to small, steady improvements that become part of your routine. I always suggest choosing just 2 or 3 simple ideas first and using them consistently. After a few weeks, those habits feel natural, and then it becomes easy to add another one. That approach has worked for me much better than chasing every new trend that appears each spring. Another lesson that an older gardener shared with me many years ago was to observe before acting. Before throwing anything away, I now ask myself one simple question: could this still serve a useful purpose in the garden? Sometimes the answer is no, and that is perfectly fine. But many times the answer surprises me. A simple bucket becomes a compost container. A broken crate becomes storage for harvested vegetables. A worn wooden board becomes a garden path that keeps my shoes out of the mud after heavy rain. These ideas are not complicated, and that is exactly why they last. The simplest methods are often the easiest to repeat year after year. I truly believe that a successful garden is built from hundreds of small practical decisions rather than a few expensive purchases. There is still one final lesson I want to leave with you because it changed not only the way I garden, but also the way I look at almost everything that enters my home, and I think it may change the way you see your own garden as well. One of the greatest rewards of following these simple habits is that the garden slowly begins to take care of itself in ways that are hard to notice at first. The soil stays moist a little longer after rain because the mulch protects it. There are fewer weeds because cardboard, leaves, and grass clippings cover the ground. Compost becomes richer every month because useful kitchen scraps are no longer ending up in the trash. None of these changes happen overnight, and that is exactly why many people give up too soon. They expect dramatic results after only a few days, while the old gardeners I learned from always measured success by seasons instead of weeks. That way of thinking completely changed my approach. Instead of asking what I could buy next, I started asking what I could improve with what I already had. I also discovered that these simple habits make gardening less stressful. When a tool breaks, I no longer rush to replace it immediately because I often find another practical solution. When prices rise at the garden center, I do not worry as much because I already produce my own compost, make my own mulch, and reuse many everyday materials. That feeling of independence is difficult to describe until you experience it yourself. It is not about avoiding every purchase. It is about knowing that your garden does not depend on expensive products to stay healthy. Many people tell me they are afraid of making mistakes. I always answer that every gardener makes mistakes, including me. I have overwatered plants, planted too early, forgotten to protect seedlings from a late frost, and thrown away useful things before I understood their value. The important part is learning one small lesson each season. Those lessons slowly become experience, and experience is something no store can sell you. I hope that as you walk through your home after watching this, you will begin looking at ordinary objects a little differently. Before placing something in the trash, stop for just a moment and ask whether it could have one more useful job in the garden. You may be surprised how often the answer is yes. There is still one final idea I want to share because it ties all these simple habits together and explains why they have brought me much more than healthier plants over the years. When I look back at all the years I have spent in the garden, I do not remember the expensive tools or the products that promised perfect harvests. I remember the simple habits that quietly made every season a little easier. Saving cardboard instead of buying more weed fabric, turning kitchen scraps into compost instead of throwing them away, using old bottles to water plants slowly, covering the soil with leaves that many people considered useless. None of these ideas are difficult, yet together they create a garden that asks for less money, wastes fewer resources, and gives back much more than many people expect. That is why I wanted to share these 17 simple things with you, not because they are secret tricks, but because they are practical habits that anyone can start today without special equipment or a large budget. If you choose only 2 or 3 of these ideas this week, you will already be moving in the right direction. Next season, you can add another few, and before long, these habits will become as natural as watering your plants. That is exactly how it happened for me. I never changed everything at once. I simply stopped throwing away one useful thing after another, and over time my garden became healthier, my compost became richer, and my trips to the garden center became much less frequent. I hope this video encourages you to look around your home with fresh eyes because useful gardening materials are often hiding in plain sight. The best part is that these methods can be repeated year after year without becoming expensive or complicated. If you enjoyed spending this time with me, I would love to know which of these 17 ideas surprised you the most and which one you plan to try first in your own garden. Your experience may also help someone else who is just beginning their gardening journey. Thank you for watching and for sharing a little of your day with me. I truly believe that the best gardens are built one simple habit at a time, and in the next video, I want to show you another collection of forgotten methods that many older gardeners still use today, but that younger generations are slowly beginning to forget. I think a few of those ideas may surprise you even more than the ones we talked about today.